Hi boys and girls. In 2010 our holiday Bible week theme was heroes. Yay! But we're not talking about Batman, Spider-Man, Superman or Superwoman. No, we're talking about heroes that are even better, heroes from the Bible. And there's so many that we could talk about today, but I want to talk to you and share the story about one that has been very special to me from I was a little girl. It's the real life fairy tale story of an orphaned girl who ended up as Queen of Persia and the job that God gave her to do. It's so exciting, so listen on. Long ago in a country called Persia, there was a king named Xerxes and a queen named Vashti. King Xerxes was having a banquet to show all the nobles that he was very, very wealthy.
Go to my wife the Queen, and tell her to come to me that all may see how beautiful she is.
King wants to see you. No, I will not go. I will not be paraded in front of all those rich people. I am not to be inspected like a piece of meat.
When she refused, the king was furious.
What? How dare she not appear before me?
To make matters worse, a rather nasty man named Haman, who was one of the king's advisors, teased the king.
Ha ha ha! If word gets around that the Queen refused to obey you, there will be trouble. Those women will think they can have our equals, or worse still better than us men. They will think they don't have to listen to their husbands, and that they can do whatever they want. It will make our lives a nightmare.
The king inquired of his wise men what should be done to his queen for such disobedience, and they ordered that his wife should be banished and never see the king again. It wasn't long before King Xerxes wasn't happy and missed the queen. So he ordered a search through the kingdom for lots of beautiful girls to be brought before him so he could choose a new bride. The girls chosen each received a year's beauty treatments before being presented to the king. Among those chosen by the king's scouts was Esther. Esther was beautiful, gracious and kind.
You are the most beautiful of all the girls brought to the palace by the king's scouts. I think he will choose you.
Sure enough, when Esther was presented to the king, she won his favour and approval. He knew she was just what he was looking for. In no time at all, Esther was married to the king. Now Esther was an orphan Jew who was entrusted into the care of her uncle Mordecai, who was the leader of the Jews. Mordecai encouraged Esther to hide her faith from the king and his advisors, which she did. Haman had by this time become a powerful man in the kingdom, Prime Minister of Persia in fact. Given his rise in power and title, it was appropriate for everyone to bow down to him, but Mordecai refused to bow down to him.
That man Mordecai, does he not know how important I am? I will sort him out with the rest of them Jews. I'll destroy them all.
Haman went to the king with his evil plan.
King, there is a people among us who keep themselves separate and don't abide by your laws. I think you should make a royal decree to destroy them.
The king thought about what Haman was saying and agreed. He made a royal decree that all the Jews were to be killed in every province, in every nation of the land. There would be no place to run and no place to hide. Mordecai, having found out about Haman's evil intentions, sent Esther a message. He told her what Haman was plotting.
Go to the king and beg for mercy, but plead for the life of the people of the Jews.
Esther was afraid. No one could see the king without being invited, but she fasted and prayed for 3 days. Esther mustered up her courage and went to see the king. Although it was unheard of for her to go before the king without an invitation, the king was happy to see her.
What is it, Esther? What is your request? I will give you up to half of my kingdom.
My request, dear king, is that you and Haman join me for dinner tonight.
We will come.
As they were enjoying their dinner, the king again asked Esther,
Now what is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, and it will be granted.
Let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for you. Then I will answer the king's question.
Of course, both the king and Haman agreed to attend a second banquet with the lovely young queen.
We will come down with you again tomorrow, and then you can make your request known.
Haman felt very pleased that he had been asked to dine with the king and Esther 2 nights in a row, and he was filled with pride. But then he saw Mordecai at the king's gate, and still Mordecai refused to bow down to him.
That man Mordecai makes my blood boil.
He decided that night to build gallows, which would be to hang Mordecai, and planned to speak to the king the very next morning. That way he'd have the whole matter dealt with during the day and be able to enjoy the evening's banquet in peace. That same night the king could not sleep.
Bring me the Book of Chronicles, the record of my reign, and read it to me.
The book was turned to the day Mordecai exposed a plot to assassinate the king.
What was done for Mordecai at that time?
Nothing?
The next morning, just as Haman was arriving to ask for Mordecai to be hanged, the king asked him,
What should be done for the man who the king delights to honour?
Haman, still filled with pride, mistakenly thought the king was referring to him, so he answered the king with what would please him. Imagine Haman's shock when the king commanded,
Go at once, get the robe and the horse, and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai, the Jew who sits at the king's gate.
This is what is done for the man the king delights to honour.
Haman obeyed the king, of course, but was not happy. He was very upset that Mordecai, his enemy, was being honoured by the king. Immediately after leading Mordecai around the city, Haman had to go to the banquet with the king and queen.
Queen Esther, what is your petition? It will be given to you. What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted.
If I have found favour with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition, and spare my people. This is my request.
Who is he? Where is he? The man who dared to do such a thing?
An adversary and enemy, this horrible Haman.
Haman was terrified, and rightly so, because the king was furious. The king ordered that he be hanged. Haman's pride and cruelty had led to his own destruction, and brave young Esther had saved her people. Wasn't that just the best superhero story ever? There was Esther, orphaned, taken in by her uncle, and then being whisked away by the scouts to the king's palace. Then along comes this decree, and the Jews' hope lay in whether Esther was willing to risk her own life to save them. Now Mordecai had to convince Esther to push past her fear and do what God wanted her to do. She was the only one who could get close enough to the king and plead on their behalf. And he used these words, "And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this." Esther needed someone to encourage her on her journey, not because she lacked faith, but because she just needed the reassurance that God would go before her. We all face times of doubt and fear, times when we wonder, why me, Lord? Yet our faithful God reminds us that He's been with us all along and will continue to go before us to guide us and protect us. And I wonder how many times Esther questioned the events in her life or had doubts about her safety and her future. I'm sure there were many times when she cried out, "Why me, Lord?" At these times, do you remember what she did? Yes, you got it. She fasted and she prayed. And just as Esther entered the king, we can come before our King of Kings, King Jesus. And as his children, we can come before him in prayer, and he will welcome us each and every time. So today I want you to be inspired by the obedience and bravery of Esther. God has a plan for your life, but it involves trusting God right where you are. This is for such a time as this. So step forward in his strength, shine for him, and his purpose will be fulfilled through you. God bless you, boys and girls. See you next week. Okay, boys and girls, so it's challenge time. I would love you to dance for me this week to Jesus, You're My Superhero. Hopefully you'll remember some of the dances, the dance steps. Why don't you read the book of Esther and recap the story for yourselves? I'd love you to dress up in your superhero costumes, just like me. I know you love to dress up from time to time as well. You could draw me a picture of Esther with the king, or you could do a craft of making yourself a crown, a king and a queen crown. Or why not recite for me Esther 4:14? What a powerful verse that is. Look it up and then recite it all for me. I'd love to see that. So again, girls and boys, have an amazing week. Remember to be brave and to step forth and to shine for him. Bye for now.